Hey folks, welcome. Welcome. Hey, just to let you know, I'm kind of practicing some informed risk taking today. Normally, I have my puppies in here in my office with me so I can keep an eye on them and all that. Well, I just let them out after my last lecture, and I don't think they want to come back in. I think they're kind of done with their crates. So, yeah, we'll have to see how this goes. I'll go out there and in another 45 minutes and find out what kind of damage has been done, right? So, okay. Hey, let's go ahead and get started. I told you today we were going to do a deep dive into exporting. Um, you know, on Tuesday, and on a very, very poor lecture, I apologize for that, we talked about all the different ways that you can enter foreign markets: turnkey, joint venture, licensing, foreign direct investment, acquisition, things like that. A lot of you in your papers are going to be focusing on licensing, which makes, frankly, a ton of sense. But what many folks end up doing is exporting. And it's really not hard to see why. Exporting is very, very popular. Hey, Alma, great. Glad to have you with us. Exporting is very popular. We can produce things here. We're already producing them for our domestic market. Why not just produce more and export it, right? Makes a lot of sense. Hey, Shalise. So, exporting is very popular. And we're going to talk about why, but then we're going to talk about how it's really tough and how to go about doing it if you're going to go into exporting. Okay, so with that, let's jump in. Exporting is huge. It's even here in Utah. I'm going to come, no, I don't want that one. I want this one. And even then, you can't see it all. I apologize. So exporting is here big in Utah. The blue here is other exports. The red sections you see here, that's computer and electronics. These are all things that Utah exports. But this gray here, this is metals. Yeah. So, and this was in 2015, by the way, 5 years old. But notice a huge part of our export is metals from here in Utah, because we have Kennecott, we have silver mines, we have all kinds of things here in Utah. And these materials are used all over the world. Of course, computers big. And then we have this big thing of other. Well, Utah is a huge exporter of goods, as is just about every state in the union. So a lot of our revenue is from exports. By the way, and did I share this in this class? You want to know one of the things that the U.S. I just learned this. So if I am telling you something that we already discussed, I apologize. But I just found out that one of the U.S.'s, one of our biggest exports is blood and plasma. Blood and blood plasma. Here's the thing. Everybody needs it. We need plasma. We need blood. It's a health, medical. Yeah, we need it. Yeah, right? Right, Alma? But here's the thing. In most countries, it's illegal to sell your blood or to sell plasma. And so the only blood and plasma that the rest of the world gets, not the rest of the world, but a lot of the world gets, is volunteer. Well, volunteer is great. Volunteer is wonderful. But volunteer doesn't always fill the market need, fill demand, meet demand. And so here in the U.S., you can sell your blood. You can sell your plasma. My son frequently sells his plasma at Giffords. I have a niece who worked, yes, especially with plasma, Alma, you're absolutely right. I have a niece who used to work at Giffords. All right, she's now a PA, physician's assistant. But yeah, and I actually, true story, I'm going to tell you the true story. I'm going to tell you my true story because it's a funny true story. So I figure I'm going to start selling plasma, right? And this was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I wanted new lights and new cameras and stuff. And I thought, if I sold plasma, I could get a little extra revenue for my studio. And so I go to Giffords and and you got to go through all kinds of tests, folks. You can be assured that the plasma and the blood is safe because they take blood and they test it and they have you fill out this paperwork and then they have you come back and it's 3 visits, each visit about 4 hours just to become eligible to sell your plasma through Giffords, right? And you fill out questionnaire. I mean, it's so in depth. I was astonished. Well, one of the questions they asked was, hey, did you ever live in England or France during the 1980s? And I did. I lived in both England and France during the 1980s. So I said yes. And, so they go through the whole thing and they're signing me off and they're going through the paperwork. And then the person stops and looks and says, says here that you lived in England and France in the 1980s. And I said, yeah, I did. And they said, well, you're ineligible. And I'm like, what? And they said, well, mad cow disease was really big in that region at that time. And once you get mad cow disease, you never get rid of it. And so there is a possibility, as remote as it is, that your blood is tainted with mad cow disease. Now they said, it looks like you're doing pretty well, so odds are it's not, but we can't accept your blood. And I was like, dudes, I've been here 3 times, 4 hours each. You would think that in a market like Utah, where a lot of people, mine was not an LDS mission. I just lived there as a kid. But you would think in a market like Utah, where a lot of people serve missions, that's one of the first things they would check. Not the last thing, the first thing. Anyway, I couldn't sell plasma. Okay. So with that going on, so export is big. Export is big. I know, I'm so sad, right? Yeah, send your donations. I need to set up a crowdfunding because I'm not able to sell my plasma. I know, tearjerker. So exporting is big. Let's look at some pros and cons of exporting. All right. So, and by the way, we have contributor comments. All right. So let's look at pros. This is why people love to export. Okay. Avoids costs associated with setting up manufacturing facilities in another country. You don't have to brownfield anything. You don't have to greenfield anything. You don't have to set up a factory. You don't have to, you're already building it here. You're making whatever you want to export. Why not just make more? Okay. Less expensive way of gaining experience in a foreign market, right? Reducing pioneering costs. Remember, if you're going to go into a foreign market early on, it's going to be really expensive and you're going to make a lot of mistakes and you're going to have to invest a ton, and there's no guarantee that there would be a result, a win. And so with exporting, it's like, heck, let's just put a few units on a boat, send it overseas, and see if they sell. It's a really low risk way of getting into a foreign market. Okay? Cons, though, there are cons. May miss out on efficiency and economies of scale. Okay? But let's really focus on this. High transportation costs and trade barriers. Here's the thing. Yeah, it might be high transportation costs, especially if you're only selling a few units. But trade barriers and tariffs and so forth, this is why people want to try to avoid exporting. Everything we talked about earlier in the semester around trade barriers and protectionism and so on and so forth, the majority of those are all around exports or imports, right? So you really have to deal with that. You have to tackle that problem if you're going to get into the exporting business. Now, if you're doing it within a regional like NAFTA or the new NAFTA or folks that we have agreements with, EU and so forth, Great Britain, then the barriers are going to be less. There will be less tariffs and so forth. Nevertheless, that's something that exporters kind of freak out about. Okay. The promise of exporting, why people love it. Revenue and profits by entering foreign markets, significant opportunities for growth and cost reduction. You know, if you're making, I don't know, you're making these lens caps here and you sell, you know, 1 million units here in the US, well, imagine how many units you could sell in China. Imagine how many units you could sell in India, right? So opportunities for growth are just monumental. When sales dip in one region, you can pivot to other markets. This is a big plus with exporting, is it's kind of like diversifying your portfolio. If you are selling in the US and then selling in, say, 5 other markets, well, then one market starts to go dry, you can pivot over to another market that's going up. And so you can always make sure that you are investing your time and resources in a growth market and shifting away from, say, markets that have plateaued. So that's a big plus of exporting. There are some really common mistakes, though. Really common mistakes. Let's explore those. Waiting until after the company has fully saturated the local market before exporting. You know, don't say, oh, we're going to wait until we've sold every possible unit we can here in the US. It actually takes a long time to set up an export business and to grow a market and so forth. And so if your growth here in the US is going up, but then it plateaus and then you think, okay, now we're going to export. Well, now you've got 2 or 3 years of plateau before your export market starts to go up. That may not necessarily be optimal, right? So even when your sales are coming up here in the US, you ought to be exploring exporting. Another common mistake, waiting until the world comes to you rather than proactively going out and trying to develop the market. So the idea is, even if the world does come to you, you have not anticipated that demand, you did not foresee the demand, and so you cannot meet the demand, and so the market will go somewhere else where they have anticipated it. So if you're looking ahead and you're anticipating going into foreign markets and you're trying to build those markets, then when folks come to you and say, hey, we want to start business with you, you're ready to go. You've already looked at this. But if you're passively sitting around, not planning ahead, and somebody comes along and says, hey, we want to buy your product, you say, you know what, I don't have the manufacturing, capacity. I can't meet that demand. All right, last one. Lack of experience and going it alone sours new entrants into engaging further. So here's what we're going to spend the rest of our time on in this lecture. Exporting is actually a big pain in the butt. It's a massive, massive pain in the butt. We're going to go into some detail. And so if you're not ready for it, if you think it's just as simple as taking something you've made, putting it in a box, writing a label on it, and taking it to the post office, you're in for a world of surprise, right? And so when they realize it and going it alone and it starts to go bad, people are just like, I'm out. I'm not going to do it. Check this out. According to a UN report, the typical transaction may involve as many as 30 parties, 60 original documents, and 360 copies, all of which need to be processed. And that's for exporting. That's nuts. Okay? Well, why is this the case? Why do we do this? Well, here's what it comes down to. A lack of trust. Okay? wrap your mind around this. Think about this for a moment. You want to do business with somebody, right? First of all, you've never met. You've never met, so you have no idea who this person is. You live in different countries, totally different time zones, right? You speak different languages. You have different legal systems, and maybe you follow the legal systems and maybe you don't, right? It can be very difficult to track down somebody if they default. So if, let's say that, and I'm just going to choose Uruguay. I don't know why. Uruguay. I have nothing against Uruguay. I've never met the person. It's a different country, different time zone, different culture, different expectations. I do not speak, I believe it's probably Spanish in Uruguay. All right. I'm not positive about that, but I believe it's Spanish. They have a different legal system. I don't know their legal system. And if this person ends up disappearing with my money or with my product, I can't find them. All right. So what do we do to overcome this lack of trust? Well, we over-engineer the hell out of a system. Okay. Let me show you what we do. We're going to walk through this. We're not going to spend a ton of time, but we're going to walk through kind of the key points. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is, okay, I'm an importer and I want to import something from France. To France. I'm French. I'm importing from the United States. So I order something. I order something from New York, right? Well, then the exporter here in the US, they agree to fill the order. Great. Hey, I just went online and I ordered something. Je suis en France, j'ai besoin de quelque chose que vous fabriquez, right? And the guy in New York goes, I have no idea what you just said, but sure, we'll sell it to you. Okay, great. Simple, right? Well, here's the thing. Now the importer, I need to arrange for a letter of credit because the person in New York isn't going to just say, oh yeah, you just send me the money whenever you want, right? No, they're going to want the money first before they send their stuff, right? Hey, Victor, great to have you with us. However, I'm not going to send the money until I get the goods, right? So now we're at an impasse. I'm not going to send the money until I get the goods, but you're not going to ship the goods until you get the money. So we need to set up a letter of credit, okay? This right here. So now a letter of credit is basically where I go to a bank in France, and that bank in France, basically, promises the importer, who, that person in New York, that they will get paid when they send the stuff, okay? So my bank in France has to talk to their bank in New York, Paris and New York. So the banks both agree, yes, the money is there. It will be paid upon reception of receipt of goods. Okay, great. So then what? Well, the Bank of Paris sends the letter to the Bank of New York. All right. The Bank of New York informs the exporter that you have the letter of credit. So the Bank of New York tells the person who's exporting, hey, we got the letter of credit. That order you just got from Paris, it's good. We have a letter of credit. We're all set. You can go ahead and continue this process. Great. So then what? Well, then New York ships the goods off to France. Yay! But now here's the deal. Who owns those goods now? Because if that ship gets, say, sunk, or if goods get stolen, or if they're pirates and so forth, who owns the stuff on that ship? Okay, well, that means we need a bill of lading. This is issued by the exporter to a carrier. It essentially serves three purposes. It's a receipt, it's a contract, it's a document of title. The shipping company for that short period owns the goods. All right. So The exporter doesn't own them. The importer doesn't own them. The shipping company for a short while owns them. Okay, good. So then we go ahead and send drafts to the bank to say, I have now sent it. The exporter tells the bank, I've now sent it. Mechanism by which the importer affects payment. I've sent it, so you need to start making payment. Okay? That's what the draft or bill of exchange does. So, Bank of New York presents the draft to Bank of Paris. Bank of Paris returns and accepts the draft, saying, we're ready to pay. And then 10 and 11, exporter sells the draft to the bank. Bank tells the importer the documents have arrived. We're almost there. Importer pays the bank. I finally pay the bank because the documents have arrived and I now officially own the stuff. It's in the port, and so I can pay the bank, and the bank then pays the Bank of New York, and the exporter gets their money. Simple. Well, no, not simple at all, right? I mean, that's a freaking mess. And so what a lot of companies will do is, especially at the beginning, they will use an export management company, EMC, okay? An export management company helps first-time exporters with all this, specializes, in making sure that all of this gets done well and properly. And if it ends up being something you do on a regular basis, then you're all set. So, as I mentioned before, the majority of you are doing licensing, so you don't have to worry about any of this. However, if some of you choose to go the export route, I would recommend that you write up in your paper that you are going to use an export management company to help facilitate this process. Because, as you can see, this is not something for the faint of heart. You need to know what you're doing to make sure this goes off without a hitch. Okay? So, very, very short today. I just wanted to do that deep dive into lectures. I'm not lectures, into export. So what I would like to do now, just real quick, is I'd like to get a pulse from those of you that are with us. So we've got Shalise, Alma, Victor with us, and anybody else who has come on board. Tell me where you are with your papers right now. Have you started working with them so far? Have you started taking the notes from these lectures and from the other readings that have been included and integrating? So do me a favor, chime in and just give me a quick update on where you are. I'm going to go over to the asking question. I can't give you puppy cam. I have no puppies. I have no puppies in here. Puppy cam is empty. So we'll go over to the other slide. Tell me where you are so far, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, let's come on back. So, Victor, haven't started yet. I'm going to help you out here in just a moment. But just to kind of set the context here, or kind of set the environment, it's not too late at all. Okay? It's not too late at all, right? Those that have started already and have started to kind of flesh out an outline and so forth, they're just getting ahead of the game and using the material in these lectures to kind of help write it. But don't worry, you can totally catch up, and I'm going to show you where to go here in just a moment. So Shalice, fantastic. Looks like you have a skeletal outline with several sections. Good. I hope you've been kind of taking some notes and throwing things in, saying, hey, in this section, be sure to do this. In this section, let's add that, such as for the strategy that we've discussed, right? You know what your strategies are. Good. Alma, I've been compiling it. First sections are pretty solid. I have basic information. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. And by the way, so I'm going to get us, we've now got our contributors here and awesome comments. You're going to get points today. Yasmin, gathering all the information right now, started the paper, just making sure, making sure everything is set for each section. Very good. Very good. Do me a favor, folks. I got everybody responding to that. So we are going to go ahead and give you the points for this. If you would, send me an email that says 102610. Okay, and I'll put that in here. 102610. Send me an email that says 102610, and you're going to get some points for this. Okay? So with that, Victor, let me make sure that you're pointed at in the right direction. Everyone, just so you know, what I'm about to do is I will take us to Canvas, and we'll look at where this assignment is and all the documents. So I'm going to come over here. Come over here. All right, so here's our class. Our class is right here. And what I'm saying is, if we come here to syllabus, and we scroll to the bottom, this is the paper we're talking about right here. Strategic Management Proposal. All right, so if we click on this, Victor, we're going to go ahead and open that up, and we see all the requirements of this paper. Now, all the details are in here and so forth. This is an outline of what should be included in the paper. So when you outline, I recommend outline it right away. Product or service overview. What product or service are you going to try to take overseas? An overview of the market. Market potential, right? If we do this, what's the potential? A competitive analysis, barriers to entry, all the tariffs and subsidies and so forth, and a pestle analysis. Now, a pestle analysis is its own animal. So what I'm going to do is I click here on pestle analysis, and this brings us to a document that I have that shows all the aspects, and let me close that, shows you all the parts of a pestle analysis: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And what I've also done is I've included what each section of a pestle analysis should, provide, should cover. So political system, and then I've added some links that will give you the political system, for example, for whatever country you're going to be doing. Same for political philosophy, political stability. Economic, what's their economic system? Here are some links that will help you. So, for example, let's do country attractiveness, right? Let's do Index of Economic Freedom, country attractiveness, index of economic freedom. And I go, well, okay, let's make this bigger. By the way, Singapore, #1 country for economic attractiveness, for business attractiveness. Who's doing Singapore? Was that oh gosh, I think that was Nicole, actually. I don't think Nicole's with us, but Singapore, pretty darn amazing, right? But let's just put up Uruguay, because I was picking on Uruguay earlier. Yes, Alma, yes, right? There you go. Okay, so I'm going to do, Alma, that's you. So you know right away, go to this website, because it's going to tell you everything you know for Singapore. So heck, let's just go ahead and do Singapore. So if I click on this, we see that the overall score, 98.4, world rank #1. Holy heck, right? Rule of law, judicial effectiveness, and so forth. Remember, country attractiveness is what kind of legal system is in place. Do they have rule of law? How regulated, how open are their markets, trade freedom very high, and so forth. So it's not difficult to see why Singapore would be so attractive for doing business. So all of you, would go to something like that. So that's just one example, right? You could do, you're going to need to look at labor availability. You'd go to United Nations Development Program for labor availability. All of the things you need to investigate, there are links here for you to get the information you need. So I haven't done the research for you. I've pointed you in the right direction to do the research. Okay? So those are all the elements that will go into this paper. Of course, you'll have conclusion and recommendations. That's what you need to be looking at. Now, okay. Oh, good, Victor. I'm glad that was helpful. Now, you'll want to check past lectures, because remember, let's say that social structure, religious influence, customs and traditions, Hofstede's framework. We talk about these things in past lectures. We also talked about political systems and so forth. So a lot of the material that you need for this paper, we have discussed in class. I have provided you in the supplemental material on Canvas, and the links are here. So I've provided a ton. Now it's up to you guys to go in, get all the information you need, and sink your teeth into it. Hofstede's insights, remember, we went over that on what, country comparisons. So if let's do Singapore, and I'll go ahead and compare with United States. All right, so there we go. We are now comparing Singapore with the United States on all the things that we discussed in class, right? Power distance, which one is which? United States, okay. Power distance, individualism, yeah, notice individualism. Singapore, they're much more about the community, collective. Uncertainty avoidance, yeah, so interesting, right? You'll want to do all this for your countries. Once again, all the materials are there and available because I totally hooked you up. So now it's up to you guys to make use of the material. Okay? So, whoa, I guess things are awesome. So there's everything that you need. Start it now. Don't wait. Start it now. Okay? All right, everyone. That's it. Great job. Like I said, short today, but hopefully we've got you all pointed in the right direction. And I'm going to stick around online in case you have any questions or you want to follow up one-on-one. We can do that. Otherwise, we're all set. Have a great rest of the day, and better still, a great weekend. We'll talk to you later. There it is, right there.